afternoon and welcome to Nixu Capital Markets Day. My name is Hanna Raitanen, I'm Nixu Communications Manager, and I have the pleasure today to open our session. Let's have a look on the day's program. So our first speaker will be Petri Kairinen, Nixu CEO, and Petri's first topic will be setting the scene for Nixu after COVID-19. A bit later, Petri will be discussing about the Nixu growth strategy and the growth ambition that we published today as a stock exchange release. Our next speaker, or the second speaker, will be Pietari Sarjakivi, SVP Labs, and Pietari will be giving insight on the cybersecurity market outlook. After Pietari, there will be Janne Kärkkäinen, Nixu CFO, and Janne will be discussing about the Nixu financials and KPIs. And last but not least, Aleksandr Värä, VP IoT Business, will be discussing about the IoT and how to secure services and products. Before we start the event, I'd like to remind that there are plenty of opportunities for Q&A, so please use the webcast functionality and send us some questions. And now it's time to start. Welcome, Petri Kairinen.
Thank you, Hanna. Thank you very much. And very nice to have you all virtually present in this Nixu Capital Markets Day. And also we are having our live audience here in the form of some privileged analysts being able to come in here. And actually, when we were thinking about whether we have a live audience or not, in the sort of the corona situation in Finland was, I guess, still in the sort of old mood, but looks like that our government is now much more optimistic. So should we have known that, maybe we could have had more people in here as well. But anyhow, now we will proceed with this procedure. I'm hoping that you are having a nice seating in your living rooms or in your home offices or wherever you are right now. As Hanna said, I will be now first touching a bit on the kind of the past 2 years. That was the last time we had a CMD was 2 years ago. So where we have what has happened during that period, which has been very much of the COVID-19 period. And then we will have Pietari to lay out more on the cybersecurity market and the outlook for it. And after that, I will actually continue on Nixu's strategic ambition, knowing then the sort of the market outlay. But with further ado, let's continue forward with the setting the scene. And as those that have listened to my presentations previously, you always know that I'm very fond of our purpose, our mission statement of keeping the digital society running. And I want to start with that today as well. And obviously the Corona period being a very important highlight of the importance of digital society, the importance of being able to conduct business or work or participate in virtual CMDs via virtual means. And that means that Nixu's mission of being there in the background, making sure that these connections, these digital services are secure and resilient is more important than ever before. Okay, and I hope that this is the last time that I have to put on this virus picture in my slides. I promise not to do it after this, hopefully. But I think it's worthwhile to remember that what has happened since the 2019 CMD. So in March 2020, when the outbreak of pandemic was clear and then the restrictions globally started to be visible and the market visibility went really into dark immediately, we laid down a sort of a strategic change in Nixu direction. We decided to put on hold the growth ambition statements that we had just released in fall of 2019. And we decided that we need to focus on the business at hand, protecting and raising cash reserves to survive through the crisis. And obviously it's good to remember that we didn't really have any understanding on how deep the crisis will be, what will be the effect. But obviously we knew at that point that many clients were panicking already and we were seeing lots of distressing things. And of course, you could say in hindsight that maybe we could have been, let's say, more pressing the gas going through the pandemic and really gaining some advantages from there. But it's good to understand that at that point we were not maybe financial and cash-wise in that such a position that we would have had the luxury of taking that chance. We decided that it's much more important to protect the business continuity and make sure that Nixu continues, even if it means that we need to lay down the sort of the growth ambition for some time. And obviously, we are here today in order to return to the growth ambition. We have today released a new statement on the growth ambition, and I will go through that in a few minutes. But yeah, as said, the society overall is increasingly digital after the pandemic, and we all know that cybersecurity protection, preparation are critical, and also the response obviously are critical to maintain digital operations. Because even if the investment into cybersecurity during the pandemic were not as high as one could have hoped for and were visible, the threat actors or the crime economy and so on have not laid still. So there has been an increasing amount of cyber threats, cyber attacks happening all during these 2 years. And obviously Nixu has doing their part in detecting and responding to these threats as well. And I just wanted to put on a few highlights of those operations that we have been doing. And if we start from the left in this slide, during the past 12 months, for example, it's good to know that Nixu has a capacity to process 100,000 different security events per second. And not during the 12 months, but per second we can process 100,000. That's a full capacity. And actually that is the same capacity or a little bit over the capacity of how many Google searches are done worldwide every second. So there is a huge capacity and huge amount of sources that we are monitoring. We are looking for security incidents at our clients. And those will be increasing as the digital commerce and digital business grows in perspective. During the 12 months, we have also reported and verified over 5,000 security incidents at our clients, with the mean time of detecting, analyzing, and responding in 63 minutes during the whole 24/7 cycle, including Sunday nights and Saturdays and so on. And of those 5,000, 250 have led into a sort of on-site, ongoing, larger investigation that we call digital forensics and incident response work, meaning that there's been a really serious situation ongoing. And I think these are pretty formidable numbers, and also remembering that Nixu has started these sort of managed service operations, continuous monitoring only for a few years. So we have built up a very sizable operation, and obviously we will discuss on how we see this future going forward and what will the future bring. But I think it's already visible that it's much more than consultancy, the things that we are doing in Nixu. And of course, that's what the clients are asking for. This is what the clients need increasingly. And we have some nice client cases that I'm going to outlay during this presentation. And case Outokumpu is one of the ones that we published, and there's more details available under that link. But Outokumpu, a global supplier of stainless steel, is one of our clients for Nixu Cyber Defense Center. And there, of course, we are providing a monitoring, 24/7 monitoring into their IT systems, protecting their business continuity. And of course, in the process industry, the business continuity is very key to their success. And they have felt that they want to outsource this part of their IT operations to us. And a very good partnership there. And when we look at the Nixu services overall and from the client perspective, it's important to understand that even if we and other cybersecurity companies are talking quite a lot about cyber defense, monitoring centers, detection and response, digital incidents and forensics, it's good to understand that in order to protect the client's cybersecurity as a whole, as a holistic framework, you need to do much more than just that. You need to do a lot of preparation work. You need to build up your systems in a secure manner. You need to build up governance processes, take care of the digital identities of your own employees and your partners, and all of the very many different things. And what Nixu is trying to do is that we are trying to offer our clients a full holistic service portfolio where we can offer them a wide scope of different cybersecurity services so that they could rely on Nixu in a let's say partner thinking and not buying just best of breed solutions from many different vendors, but focusing on one vendor and getting a full scope from there. And we also believe that with this approach we can offer the client much more balanced view of their security posture and also let's say, suggest remediations or advisories that are much more balanced in their nature, not focusing on some specific technology or such. And I think this is an important comparison that you need to understand when you are looking at the cybersecurity companies and different public cybersecurity companies giving their CMDs, for example. That many of them, those are really point-to-point solution offers, whereas Nixu is aiming to be a holistic service provider for our clients. And there's another client case, a Keva, a Finnish insurer company, pension agency in Finland, where we have been working very heavily with their awareness, so employee awareness regarding cybersecurity and how to protect in those cases. And there's a old saying in cybersecurity that your people are your weakest link, and of course you can argue in many ways whether that's the right thing to say, but it is true that you can have as much technology as you want, but still a single person can make the difference whether an attacker goes through or not. So in that sense, there are much more other things than just technology when you are making sure that your cybersecurity is sound and right. Good, but hey, this concludes my first part and setting the scene and where we are going forward, and hopefully also highlighting that having the client intimacy, being near the clients, is a very key to our success. But next I'd like to invite Pietari Sarjakivi here on the stage to discuss further on the future of cybersecurity market. Pietari Sarjakivi is a Senior Vice President of the Labs business area in our new organization, and used to be the head of our Cyber Defense Center earlier, and now going forward with our new initiatives. Welcome, Pietari. The stage is yours.
Thank you. So one of the things that we do in Nixu Labs is to try to understand where the future of cybersecurity market is going. And in this presentation, I tried to open the drivers for the future markets, how we see them, and also to estimate the market size. Let's start with the drivers. We are following the model shown in the pictures here, where first we talk about the megatrends that are creating some kind of chasing forces that are then affecting the customers' behavior. The megatrends. There's many different type of listings for the megatrends. We here at Nixu, we have been talking about these three for a while now. If we start with the digitalization of society, there I want to highlight Industry 4.0 and cyber physical systems that basically are complex and connected systems that run our critical infrastructure and manufacturing and many different type of things. Those are more and more automatically controlled and communicating to each other without human intervention. For example, of these is a smart factory that is actually making material refills to prevent the extra storaging and speeding up the process that way, making it smoother. That of course relies on the secure and trustworthy communication channel and the data as well. As mentioned, the automation is growing. Everything that can be automated will be automated. And artificial intelligence is one way to automate things, but it comes with a certain risk, especially for the security. And that is that we don't yet understand why the computer is making those decisions that it makes. For example, why the computer vision identified a cat from a picture instead of dog or weapon or whatever there is. Second thing that is changing is the legislation. There's a new privacy legislation in China. EU is having their new artificial intelligence legislation coming up. The GDPR is still there. Amazon just got a huge fine for the GDPR, breaking the GDPR rules. There's also geopolitics included, data localization, Gaia X Cloud in the EU, local internets, and many these kind of geopolitical related things. And when it comes to cyber crime and cyber war, I think NATO and many others have stated that no future war will be fought without a cyber element built into it. Of course, the topic here is cyber crime, and it's a little bit different thing. But ransomware that is mainly enabled by anonymous payment cryptocurrencies is huge thing nowadays. Based on the estimations from the Cybersecurity Ventures, this year the global ransomware damage cost is going to be about $20 billion, and it's going to grow quite much bigger, 13 times bigger in 10 years. And this is one of the reasons why cybersecurity continues to be and will be more and more in the agenda of board meetings. If we now move to the changing forces, there's many trends, there's many changing forces. I want to highlight a few of these. Cloud-native systems and the fact that we are moving more and more stuff to the cloud causes some business benefits, much of business benefits, but some changes to how we should protect our environments as well. One thing there is that we are distributing our defense. We are not that anymore kind of collecting all the defensive measures into the single stack or place, but it's now, since data is all over the place, the defenses must be following the data. One way to call this is cybersecurity mesh, so distributing the defense where it is. But at the same time, this causes us we need to change how we do the security in clouds. For example, identity first type of security, zero trust type of things, because the identity is the main thing that we can control anymore in the SaaS services in cloud environments. Another thing that is changing is how our people, where they are working, where they are located, how we can actually secure the remote workers during the kind of extended remote working period. How to make sure that they will actually continue to follow the best practices, the policies that we are having. Another human-related thing is the skills shortage. Some estimates say that there's 3.5 million unfilled positions for the cybersecurity specialist. I already mentioned that the automation and of course artificial intelligence is at some point helping us and lowering the amount of people we need, but still there's already this amount of cap for the people. And how you can actually protect your environments if you don't have people to do that. How to keep the people who are able to recruit in the companies. These type of dedicated cybersecurity players like Nixu, we are better positioned to both grow the talent and keep the talent by rotating them to the different roles and places where people can learn new things. The last thing that I want to highlight here is the securing supply chains. Earlier mentioned that we are more and more connected, networked. There's more and more people from different organizations, companies participating to our business critical operations. And some of those subcontractors, partners are from small and medium businesses that might not have that great resources to secure their environments. And the attacker, malicious actor, doesn't actually care through which means they get into the systems. They attack always to the weakest point for the best return of investment. And for that reason, it's up to asset owner to actually understand the risk and mitigate those third-party risks. We have seen a couple of third-party risks lately in the worldwide attacks. Then the third component here, the customer needs and behaviors. More and more, since the world is going faster, our customers need to prove and show the faster return of investments. They since the world is getting more complex and the environments are getting more complex, they want to easiness of consumption for the whatever services, technologies they are buying. Most likely these things need to be modular, so you buy one component and you add in top of that. Yet at the same time, to reduce the complexity, they need to have integrated solutions. In a way, one-stop shop, one place to control many other things. To focus on their core businesses, they most likely want to outsource generic things that can be outsourced, but at the same time insource business-related things. And last but not least, since it's really difficult to understand how secure we actually are, they might need to benchmark their own performance, their own security levels, but at the same time their partner networks, their portfolios security levels. So how secure we actually are when you include all of your assets, all of your partner networks. And for that reason, they need quite holistic solutions. This picture that has a lot of small text in it is a NIST cybersecurity framework that is a holistic, comprehensive tool to develop and understand your cybersecurity. And here I want to highlight that our customers, they need to understand their own exposure, how vulnerable they are, and their own threat level to understand what is their risk level. They need advice on cybersecurity strategies, roadmaps, risk managements, and then they need to build, define, and also operate the cybersecurity controls. Here I want to highlight digital identity and access governance again, identity first type of security, and also threat detection, and of course hunting there. And when things go south, they need to do the proper forensic investigation and respond to those threats. Make sure that the business recovery is as fast as possible. So how big the market actually is? There's many different listings and estimations for that. Here, Gartner says that the global spend for the cybersecurity is about $150 billion this year. It's basically coming, about half of it is coming from the managed services and professional services. Then a little bit over half is coming from the technologies that are actually split into quite many smaller categories. For example, the largest category there, 17% of the total spend is going for the different type of security gateways and for the security analyst tools and for the endpoint protection and XDR technologies. So there's quite small pieces of that larger cake there. Especially the specialist-driven global markets are growing about 8% a year. Here it's good to see that especially the professional service side has been taking a small corona hit in a way that the growth has been slower during 2020, but it will continue to grow and actually go over to the managed services growth in a couple of years. And if we talk a little bit more specific to the markets that are relevant to Nixu, those seem to outgrow the market, especially if we take, for example, the Swedish professional services market that is overall about 30% faster growing than global market, and in 24 it is up to 65% faster. So growth-wise, Nixu seems to be in the right markets. I think it's now time for our questions and Q&A.
And now it's time for Q&A. Should we first take a question from the webcast audience? So there is a good question for Pietari, so here it comes. When looking into the trends, future predictions and market drivers like growth of cybercrime, what would be the next big thing that a company should pay carefully attention in cybersecurity and invest in the next couple of years?
Well, rather large question. Of course, I would propose that people do the, so to say, the basic things right. Now we're talking quite a lot about the ransomware and things like those. And easiest way to protect yourself is to understand your assets and patch them and make sure that your people are aware that they should not give the passwords away and so on. So always I recommend that we actually do the basic things right. But as mentioned at some point, the digital identity and understanding who are our users, how they behave, is that normal behavior of their how they work, and also detecting threats and responding them rapidly. I would say that those are the next important things.
Good, thank you. And then another one to Pietari. So some time ago it was predicted that managed cybersecurity services would grow much faster in the future than the more traditional security consulting services. And now hearing that the consulting services will develop faster. So in your view, what is the reason for that?
Of course, why it's globally growing like this is one other thing that why for Nixu it might be different. I would say that more and more customers wanting to have, so to say, customized managed services. So taking the basic, the bulk things there that are quite commoditized, and then they want to have some custom layer in top of that. And how I calculate things, the customization in top of those are typically seen as a professional service, so continuous services in Nixu terms. So at least that is one driver there.
Good. Let's take a question from the audience. So Matti Riikonen, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, it's Matti Riikonen, Carnegie. Do your customers actually talk about pent-up demand now after COVID? So the need to put their IT systems and IT security systems in place? Or is it just a kind of hope that all players in the market expect to be having, but is it really that customers are putting their money where their mouth is, so to say?
If I take that one, so that's of course a really good question, and we have been talking about this pent-up demand and cybersecurity debt that needs to be paid, and I guess actually looking at our competitions, we are not the only ones who are talking about that same debt to be paid. And I would say that in the clients we hear that there are pent-up projects and there are pent-up things that were supposed to take start, and especially they are the large ones. There has been actually quite a lot of activity, which you can see when we go further into our slides, that there have been lots of activity, but they have been mainly small activities, and kind of the sort of the larger engagement, they have been more bent up, and then we see a promise in that area, and there are some clients that are going further. Then of course, when clients are talking about something, it always doesn't say what they will actually do and so on. But we hear that there is things progressing and going further. So it's not only hopeful thinking that it will happen.
Okay, thanks. And then when you talk about the market growth, you said that you expect growth to be higher here in your operating countries than in the rest of the world. What is driving that, and why do you think that the fairly established countries and companies would be still investing more than other markets globally?
Maybe it's fair to point that that's of course not only our view, that's Gartner's view, but maybe Pietari, you want to.
Yeah, I would say that digitalization, we are quite well in that path, and we in the Nordics and in the Northern Europe, and I believe that these countries are investing in digitalization more than many other countries. So that is one of the reasons why these markets are growing faster. Then of course legislation, we are quite good to maintain the privacy in the Europe side, and those are the kind of the key drivers why it's growing a little bit faster than the global markets.
Okay, thank you.
And it's worth noting that we haven't previously in our capital markets days, we haven't addressed the sort of market level numbers, and that has been because there hasn't been any numbers. So this is actually the first time that also we get those numbers from Gartner that we have been using heavily. So this is the first time that we see those let's say market specific numbers and are able to relate on to those. And like with any market analysts, of course, that's whether they are how true they are. That's of course kind of remains to be seen, because it is a hard market to judge and also understand where the borders are, so to say. Yeah. But I think they give a guidance at least the direction.
Okay, and then maybe finally, your business has essentially been based on the consulting side and then managed services, while you have not had technology to basically support that own technology. So now when technology is becoming kind of more important as a competitive tool, how do you think you can fit your business model into that kind of world where actually technology is the kind of differentiating factor, and consulting might not be as kind of strong as a competitive element?
Yeah, maybe if I answer that one, and then my let's say further presentation will answer that in more detail. But it's good to point out that yes, Nixu doesn't have our own proprietary technology. We are not investing into any technology stream, and we are not about to change that, because we see that there is a certain wisdom of not carrying on R&D in a world where there is a huge amount of different cybersecurity technology companies that are invested very heavily by different venture capital companies. So we find the sort of the services path to be much more protected path. At the same time, I don't believe that actually it will be more technology driven. I believe that you will actually need much more of those professional services to make the things happen. And like Pietari actually said, the kind of the first thing would still be to get the basic things right. And there are still many basic things that are not right. So there's a lot to be done in that area. And at the same time, also the sort of the growing dominance of different cloud platforms and their own security features and so on. I think they are also covering a lot more ground, but at the same time they are very complex. So actually to set them up right requires also consultancy work, professional service work, or as a service type of work. So it's not. I would actually very heavily, I don't know, Pietari, what you think, but I would actually very heavily argue the argument that technology will just do it. I think there's a lot of money spent in the technologies, but it's definitely not that technology will just fix it, and you don't need the sort of cybersecurity work around that.
If I may add that we believe that since the world is getting complex, no matter what we do, our customers actually try to find kind of more connected approach, so integrated approach where the technologies are not. We are not just buying technology here and technology there and service provider here and service provider there, but they're trying to get some kind of umbrella, holistic approach to actually secure the market. Since it's going to be really difficult for them anyway, so they try to kind of simplify that approach.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question from the audience. So could you please, Petri, repeat what is the difference between managed services and professional services in terms of Nixu terminology?
Yeah, so if with Nixu technology terminology, it's good to know that the professional services, in our understanding, are services that are very much human labor generated. So typically time and material type of services, and or it might be value driven, but anyway, there's a human labor element associated. And of course the challenge when you have the human labor element is that the sort of the scalability, you scale up by adding people to the team, so to say. Whereas managed services are more technology dependent services where you are building on some technology stack and you are delivering that with the use of course some people there in the team. And of course then you have more options of scaling that offering further. So that's the main distinction. So, yeah.
There is a question from Atta Riikola.
Hi, it's Atta Riikola from Inderes. The past few years have not been so easy for Nixu. So what are like the key learnings from the challenges of these years?
Yes, good point. And of course I have to be humble and admit that yes, the 2 years have not been easy. And of course, even though we took a decided or made the decision to sort of put the growth ambition on hold, and we had to take the sort of the restructurings, we had to lay off some people and so on. At the same time, you can say that, well, maybe you could have acted differently and you could have been more courageous, you could have pressed more gas and maybe you could have handled the restructurings better and so on, as you can always do. I would say that the sort of the lessons learned would be that if we would be in the same situation and we could have foreseen how the digitalization on goes and so on, I think we probably would have pressed a little bit more gas at that stage. But of course, remembering what was our financial situation at that point, there really wasn't that luxury of taking that risk. Then of course the other element, I think the biggest lesson learned is the human element and how do you manage the employees, and I'll touch that in my presentation later. But of course we are a company that aims to be the best workplace for cybersecurity professionals, and when you need to restructure, when you need to save on costs, when you need to lay off some people, it's typically not the best thing to do to your employees, and that's the area where definitely we have lots of lessons learned in many areas.
Now the second question. You're planning to grow faster than the market during the next 4 years. So how you're going to do that? What's the?
I'll save my answer to that question to my coming presentation. So hopefully I'll there be able to address it with further detail.
All right. Thank you.
No more questions.
Okay. Then I guess we'll continue. Thank you, Pietari. Pietari, for your part. And thank you, Atte, for a really good bridge question to my continuation presentation. So now my plan is to address our growth strategy and the ambition statements further, and how are we going to make it happen, which I obviously understand that in the audience where 2 years have been a harder years, and this year is still kind of setting up the scene, that there's the question that, okay, are we able to meet that ambition? What are the kind of the keys to success? So first of all, I want to relate to our vision 2025, that I'm now calling it's not 2024 anymore, it's 2025. And the vision statement actually has not changed. So we still believe that the sort of the core in our strategy, what we are aiming to do, meaning that we want to be the best place to work for cybersecurity professionals in our industry, that's of course a given, and we are definitely not the only one that is more now putting more focus in their strategy to their professionals, but that it's a very important thing for us, obviously. I will address that later. And then the sort of the commercial part, being a trusted go-to partner for cybersecurity services for digitalization in Northern Europe. That is the kind of the foundation. And we believe that we continue on the route for that direction, and we are not changing. There is no very important point to understand that we are not doing any abrupt changes. We are not becoming a product company like Matti asked, or we are not returning back to Finland or anything like that. We are not doing any of those changes. We believe that the core of the strategy that we have executed since the IPO has provided us results earlier, before the COVID times. We believe that the kind of the results will still be there. But of course, there needs to be some changes, that is clear. And one of the biggest changes that we are now actually executing, and executed during the spring already, is an operating model change. And I wanted with this slide to highlight the sort of the old operating model where we were operating before or 2020 and before that. And in that model we had a market areas, Finland, Sweden, Denmark and the Benelux. And those market areas were pretty independent in their own operations and delivery. So they had their own sales force, they had their own delivery capability, and they were supposed to serve their own clients with their own right. Obviously working together, so we have always aimed to work as one Nixu, but still, being a self-sufficient in their own way. And then we had the group functions that were built to support these markets. And I purposefully put the group functions there as pretty wide bar, because I think that is one of the sort of lessons learned as well, that we had a pretty wide and big group functions, and maybe a bit confusing at times as well from the market perspective. So we were a little bit in between the sort of the, having things in the group and then having a agility and dexterity at the markets. And we had a imbalance between the market areas. In Finland, we were very brand recognized, and still are obviously, and we were mature and very scaled up, whereas the other markets were still in a sort of building up phase, and the Nixu brand recognition there is much smaller than in Finland. So the kind of the markets were very much in different maturity. And after analyzing the situation and thinking that, okay, what changes do we need to implement in order for better success in the future, we decided to move into a operating model that we are calling Better Together. And this Better Together operating model has three main goals. First of all, we need to increase client centricity. We need to be more focused on the client. More focused on the client than in our own services and in our way of working and so on. So we need to put the client really into the middle, and that's the place of the stars there in the middle of the circle. So the client team and the client needs to be there at the middle. Then we need to have a stronger competence development within our competence teams, meaning that when we have a different specialists sitting in different offices across our markets, they need to really be working together to learn from each other and to strengthen their competencies. And like in many areas in IT, in cybersecurity, you need to be constantly learning new things. You need to be picking up new skills. You need to be learning from your peers. You can't really, become stagnant in what you do. So we need to, have enough large pools of people to really strengthen the competence development. And then the third goal, better profitability, where we need to be more efficient in our service delivery. We can't have sub-optimization in different market areas, and for example, in managed services, we need to have the scale in how we deliver those. And those all goals are sort of addressed in the Better Together operating model, where we will have one business area, a client experience, which has a country-level sales teams or market units, as we call them. So we still have a local presence near the local clients in the markets where we operate. But then the delivery teams, the business units, are actually divided into two different business areas: the expert services, which is more the professional, traditional consultancy type of businesses, professional services businesses, and then the managed services, which is more based on technologies and running those technologies for our clients. And then we have the labs, where you saw Pietari already, that is responsible for finding those new growth pockets and restarting them. We will hear about IoT business unit that actually resides now in the labs business area. So that's one area where we see potential growth, fast growth, and then that's the idea that the labs now has the the freedom and strategic focus to pick on the new things. And then we have the market expansion, which is about acquiring new entities and bringing them to this Nixu constellation. And we also made a move where support functions were moved into these business areas, and we left to the group functions only the people operations and finance and risk management, a much smaller, let's say, entities that they used to be the group. And the idea again being that there is a much more P&L responsibility around several of our support functions that we had. And maybe this is an area that we can recognize that we have, let's say, rather heavy support structure at Nixu due to many reasons for the let's say the size of the typical cases that we are handling and also the multitude of markets that we are serving and so on. But anyhow, we need to streamline, we need to find ways of improving in that area. And we believe that this Better Together operating model, which of course was a kind of unlocked via the COVID remote working times, because we were, let's say, earlier pretty hesitant in opening these cross-border teams, because obviously you need to have your social distance to your manager and you want to have your visibility. And of course clients require people to be on site from time to time. But now after COVID, all of these things are, let's say, less important. You can now remotely deliver much more things than you earlier was possible. And also we have all been practicing for 2 years of working remotely soon and so on. So I think we are much better in that. Obviously it still means that we need to develop, but there is much more opportunities. And finally, for the client, it means that in any given market, we are now able to present the whole offering of Nixu. The 400 Nixuans that we are able to present to these clients and have the service delivery capability, all the competencies that we have presented to the client. Whereas in the previous times, we tended to rely on the local competencies, and when we were not good at leveraging the whole platform that Nixu has, especially of course the Finnish teams that, as said, are pretty mature in their work. Good, and then a few backgrounders. I will continue on the topic, but I wanted to give you a layout on that, and maybe it's also good to remind that I think we have a pretty well-distributed board of directors in the company, representing the different viewpoints into our business. And Kimmo Rasila being our chairman for several years, IT executive in background. Jaya Balu, a recognized cybersecurity professional from the Netherlands, currently working as a CISO of Avast. Anders Silver, a former Air Force general from Sweden, bringing the sort of the governmental and let's say cybersecurity, how would I call it, political cybersecurity background to our board. Marko Kauppi, coming with an investment background and having a good understanding of the capital markets. Kati Hakrus, CDO of Aalto University in Finland, representing also a client viewpoint and viewpoint into digitalization. And then the latest addition this spring, we got Jari Niska joining our board, a former CEO of Finnish digitalization consultant company Solita. And I think Jari gives us a good, first of all, benchmark into other consultancy companies and their way of operating, but also I think for Nixu the key is to tap into the client's digitalization programs and to provide the cybersecurity there. And I think with Jari we can find good angles in that area. So that is the board of directors currently, and then the leadership team, where we have done several changes during the past years, and this is the setup that we have been now running under the Better Together operational model from the March forward. Me being the CEO, and then we have 5 business area leaders. We have Björn-Erik Karlsson, our expert services leader. We have Valtteri Peltomäki, our client experience leader. And then we have Jan Mikkos, our managed services leader, who actually just started last week. I will invite Jan here soon to say you hello. And then we have Pietari for the labs, and Mats Lindgren for the market expansion, and Katja Müller, our chief people officer, and Janne Kärkkäinen, our CFO. And Janne you will hear soon as well. And I think one of those, let's say, bigger changes or important changes that we did, and that was actually somewhat left undue in the earlier times, was that now you can see that we have a sort of the P&L responsible persons are all in the leadership team, whereas earlier our leadership team used to be very, let's say, group focused, and we had the market area leaders not in the leadership team. 1 year ago we already took the market area leaders of that time into the leadership team, but now we did a let's say more proper change and integrated all of the businesses, and it is a true let's say business leadership team now going forward. And I'm really happy. We wanted to search for an external candidate to lead our managed services, and we wanted to find a person who has a solid managed services background and preferably also a cybersecurity background, but that was not a sort of criteria. The managed service background was much more important. And Jan, if I may invite you now here to say hello. You are here on 3rd day of Nixu career, and really happy to have you here. I guess come a little bit closer, I guess, so you get in the picture. So not going to interview you that much yet, but maybe you can introduce yourself a bit to the audience and say hello.
Absolutely, yes. Hello everyone. My name is Jan Mikkos, and I'm joining Nixu now. And after having been 20 years serving at CGI, an international IT services company where for the past 12 years or so I've managed their cybersecurity business, both professional and managed services here in the region, Finland, Poland and Baltics. So and also was part of the leadership team of the outsourcing business. So I'm breathing managed services, if you like.
Done a very, very impressive job. You never want to praise your competitors too much, but I think the kind of building up the CGI's cybersecurity service in Finland has really been a feat. So congratulations, and happy to have you here with us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and looking forward to take Nixu managed services to the next level, if you like.
Yes, that is the goal, and hopefully in the next events you will hear more of Jan's thoughts. But let's save the man for now for that. And thank you, Jan.
Thanks.
And I think we got a really good person with the managed services background, and most importantly also a great people leader, which of course for Nixu strategy is a key topic for us. Jan is also a bilingual, speaking Swedish as his native tongue, so that's as far as we got from outside of Finland capability. Good. And then to strategic themes. So how are we going forward? And this part has not changed. The slide layout may have changed, but the kind of the topics are still there. And I think all of this sort of fundamental. We went through the kind of the themes, and we discussed whether whether they are the right ones, whether we need to adapt, and so on. But finally, we're actually quite agreeing that hey, there are very important things, and we sort of need to address them along the way. Some of them are, let's say, more important in the short term, but in order to succeed on the long term, we need to be putting all of them into focus. And the cybersecurity talent community is a very, very key topic where we want to address both our own employees, the recruitment market, but then also the cybersecurity people at our clients. So this is sort of a marketing approach that we need to get Nixu's name known within the cybersecurity talent community in order to recruit and also to sell to them. And that's of course done via different thought leadership activities and being a company that you can rely on, trust on. And I think Nixu traditionally has a really good position there, and being fully 100% cybersecurity company gives us a great edge against many other competitors in who are vying for the same talent and their notices. Then the cybersecurity partner for digitalization, meaning that we want to address a strategy where we go to the clients and we offer them a holistic service portfolio, and we are there for the long term for those clients. That we have been discussing for a lot. We have taken a good leaps forward, but there remains a lot of work still to be done. And now I would say it with the Better Together model, not only in Finland, but in the other markets of Nixu as well. And now I think we have a sort of stepping stone in making that happen there. And I would say that these two are now the sort of the key things that we need to address in the short term. Then there are two other themes that will continue in our strategy, but are, let's say, maybe in less focus right now. And the other one of them is the data-driven services on top of platforms, and that means that we need to create services that provide data, give us benchmarks towards the clients, and we have started that path. We are doing things there, and we know that increasingly the clients need to have the kind of the data, they need to have the benchmarks, but obviously also developing them is pretty work intensive and costs to create. So we have now decided that on the short term it's not on that sort of full focus, because we need to get the middle X lean profitable growth in the better shape first. We need to make sure that we are profitable before we have all the money to invest into everything that we want. And then there's the expanding market presence, which for us means that we want to grow via acquisitions. We want to extend into new markets outside of the countries where we are right now. And previously we have discussed about Germany and UK and so on. And like we have stated during the COVID already, in that area we are also now in the sort of the waiting mode to make sure that we get into profitable growth mode. We need to establish the profitable growth in the markets where we are, and then we will next evaluate expanding to outside those markets. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't and couldn't do M&A in the markets where we are in order to consolidate the market or to acquire some new skill sets or talents that we are missing, or an access to some clients. And all of those 5 themes are there, and then in the middle, as said, the lean profitable growth, meaning that we need to grow in a way where we don't build up overhead. We need to grow in a profitable manner. And speaking of growth, now we come into sort of the growth ambitions that we laid out. And I want to point out that these are, in English, it's good that you can have 2 words. You can have a target and an ambition. In Finnish language, it's a bit harder, but we want to be talking about the ambition, meaning that this is sort of where we are aiming. This is how we want to set up our operations following this growth ambition. This is not that we are saying that, yes, next year we are growing 15% or so on. There's the year-to-year guidance is given separately on that. And how we've changed the guidance or this growth ambition, not the guidance, but the growth ambition, is that we are saying that on an organic level, we want during this 4-year period to be growing on the average 15%. So the compound annual growth rate being 15% throughout these 4 years. Whether it's going to be 15% every year, or whether it will be 10% one year and 20% the other, that remains to be seen. And of course, many things will relate to that. And we also lowered, we used to have the growth ambition in between 15 and 25% earlier. And we sort of lowered that a little bit, of course being a bit realistic, knowing that there is lots of questions about our capability to deliver on that promise. But we also laid that decision because I will talk about our EBITDA later, and now we are more in the focus of improving the EBITDA from year to year. Earlier we said that we want to invest the profits of our business into the growth and make sure that we grow as fast as possible, so to say. And now we are changing that weighting a bit into a more let's say profitability, or let's say better profitability and still of course growing. In addition to organic growth, we still believe that there is a consolidation to be done in the market, and we estimate that compound annual growth rate of 10% should come from acquisitions during this 4-year period. And we believe that there are still companies that can be acquired, and also that our balance sheet gives us the possibility to do it. And if we look into the ways of realizing that growth, also those have not, let's say, changed on the big picture level. So we believe in the cybersecurity partnership. We believe that when we have built the trust with the client, with separate assignments during the years, at some point we need to be brave and move in and talk at the executive level and say that, hey, how about we work as a partnership? How about we do things seriously and not like bit by bit here and there? Because it is actually a win-win to both clients and us. So we get a more, let's say, continuous repeating revenue streams, but the client gets a much more steady service. They get better visibility. First of all, they get people who know the history. They are not there on a gig, but they are working with the clients long time. And happy to say actually that last week we heard out that there was a big public RFP in Finland for the Pensions Institute of Finland, Kela, and there were 5 buckets for cybersecurity services, and Nixu won 4 out of those 5. There are other companies as well, so this is a framework agreement, and we don't know the final outcome of that. But the client is estimating that the whole value of that framework agreement, not only to Nixu but the other companies as well, is 16 million per year. And Nixu is very well positioned to take a sizable chunk once we get into the order process. And I think that trust in winning that bid also was built with separate assignments done to them, and the client was really happy with our services there. And that now that partnership or that, let's say, client relation will move into a more of a continuous delivery model, giving us a better possibility to work on that. And then when we look at the sort of the market baseline, we are now based in Finland, Sweden, Denmark and the Benelux area, having the office in the Netherlands, and then we have a delivery center in Romania, but we are not operating in the Romanian market, so we are not selling to the Romanian market. We are using that as a delivery center. And why we chose this North of Alps, Northern Europe focus is that we see a similar cultural baseline. There's an English as a working language, very important, especially now with the Better Together, when we really want to utilize people across the borders. There's a short travel for competence sharing, so when you need to ship somebody on site, you can actually pretty fast do it. And the whole Better Together model is now, of course, enabling this cross-border delivery. And one of the changes in the earlier ambition statements, where we, for example, said that we want to have 5 market areas all above 25 million euro as per revenue. As you have noticed, we removed that ambition statement, and that was mainly due to this change in thinking with the Better Together model. That first of all, we need to now focus on driving the profitable growth in the 4 existing markets. So not having 5, but drive the 4. And then also the size of an individual market is not that relevant, because actually, if one market is 100 million and we can deliver there from some other countries, people and so on, doesn't matter from our perspective. So we are not, earlier we were talking quite much about building up the scalability in all of these foreign markets. And now we think that with the operating model, we don't actually need to worry that much about the scalability. We need to worry about the brand recognition. We need to worry about reaching the clients, but we don't need to, let's say, hire people to one country in order to build that business up. And I think that's a very important point, especially as there is differences in the salary levels and so on in the different markets. So this gives us more room to operate. And also, we are also now much more with, again, the remote working mode. I think we are much more confident also in serving clients outside of these markets when we can do that remotely or flying on site. And there's a good client example of a guard, a Norwegian headquartered global naval or marine insurance provider. And for the guard, we provided a digital identity solution for them based on the cloud technologies and delivered fully remotely. So we didn't have anyone in Norway. We still don't have anyone in Norway. We flew in a few times, but mostly the work has been done remotely. And now we are supporting Guard with their digital identity solution. So we believe that when you can have those clients, when you have the sort of trust established some other way, you can actually reach out to markets outside of your own market as well, or the kind of the base markets. In the case of the card, let's say how we got in there was actually through the technology vendor who we partnered with. So the technology vendor had the lead, and we had the opportunity to come in as a trusted provider and work with the vendor to then build up the trust relationship with the client. And I'm really happy of the good work that we did there. Good. And then when talking about the profitable growth, of course, comes the question of the profitability. And as you know, that's been one of the sort of the doubts that I know that investors in Nixu have felt that, okay, are we able to do profitable growth and are we able to get into profitability? Because in many times you can say that you know you are a very fast growing company, but you are actually paying so many salaries and getting so high or low money from the clients that actually you will never reach the profitability. And I want to again reassure you that Nixu has all the foundations to create that profitability from the platform that we have. So we have not failed into any of these caveats. It's more like that we need to get the setup right. And we now, let's say, repeated the growth ambition target that we earlier had, that we want to reach over 15% EBITDA from the revenue by 2025. And additionally, we are saying that we want to do incremental increases every year. So it's not like that, you know, driving a low EBITDA until 2025 and then miraculously getting higher, but we want to see the kind of increases coming every year. Janne will walk you past a little bit further with kind of the where are we now and what are the levels. But I think it's really important to state the kind of the improvement steps that are there. And these have not changed from the past growth ambition either. So of course, with organic revenue growth, we have the more scale, we have the bigger sort of muscles to carry on many fixed costs that we have. So that is helping us. Then additionally, now with the sort of better together model, I think there is again foundation for our business units within the business areas to improve their gross margin slightly each year. For example, in the professional services, the billabilities in different market areas have been very different for many reasons. And you know, there's quite narrow niches of competencies that we are having, and sometimes you don't have the right talent at the right place at the right time, and there you create these sort of sub-optimizations. Now, with the better together model, we have ways of solving those. I think that we can see gross margins improving both in cost-wise and both in billability perspectives. Then with the client becoming more larger, with bigger clients, partnership deals, we want to see a reduced cost per revenue. Obviously, with the bigger clients, you tend to have to negotiate more on the price of the service that you are selling, but at the same time, the sales costs in our operations are quite substantial. We are running much bigger sales team in relative to other, let's say, IT consultants typically, and that is because of the small deal size that we have been carrying historically. So for us, it is key to improve the deal size and sort of reduce the sales cost per revenue that we are getting. And then maybe the same applies to the indirect costs in general. So operating in four markets, growing fast and so on, there are scale benefits that we need to reach from growing and lower the share of indirect costs. And that's also the better together model we have structured in a way that we have a better control over those costs. And those are the kind of the keys to unleashing that profitability. And then so to say last point in our ambition statement is the continuous recurring revenue from services should amount over 2/3 of our revenue by 2025. And here is also a significant change from the earlier. So earlier we said that we want to reach over 50% of our revenue from managed services, and then the other coming from consultancy-based services and technology resale and so on. And now reflecting to the slides that Pietari showed and what Gartner is talking about, we actually believe that there will also in our managed services be a significant amount of let's say professional-based services on top of the technology-based services. They might be sold hand in hand, they might be inside the same solution, but from revenue stream perspective, there is still a lot of those, and there is a lot of demand. And even if while we are continuing to grow the managed services, and Jan will really ignite them into flame, there is such a heavy growth also in the professional services that it would be hard to reach the 50% goal. And it's not sort of important by itself, because sometimes there might be licenses that we don't even want to carry. The licenses might be carrying slower margins and so on, so we don't even want to carry them. So that's why we outlined this goal into a 2/3 coming from continuous service altogether and representing a recurring revenue streams. And if we look at this picture, we can see that Nixu has carried these sort of continuous services from many years. I think the ISMS as a service, its first beginning was actually somewhere in 2007. And we have been running a fixed price value-based services with professional teams for our clients. The ISMS as a service is a security governance and management service. Then in 2015 we started with the Cyber Defense Center that we have been talking a lot and discussed today, and that is still the most of our managed service revenues. Then we have now gradually taken into use more managed digital identity services to our clients, providing digital identity solutions as a service, which is a growing revenue stream now, and it's also a managed service. And then we have a new upcoming services in the pipe, DevSecOps, meaning development security operations, I guess is the right terminology for it. Meaning that when you are developing new softwares, new services, how do you secure them at the time of their building? And then the secure device for IoT manufacturers. And Alex will actually discuss these further. And I guess the point to note here is that all of these can still carry a more of professional service streams. For example, in the Cyber Defense Center, we can have threat hunting, we can have the FIR service, we can have the threat intelligence services. And those are the services that enable us to differentiate from our competition. You could say that the sort of traditional managed service space is many times becoming sort of a red ocean because of the multitude of technologies and competition there. But the kind of the companies like Nixu who can provide a add-on layer on top of those technologies and really differentiate and build a premium offering, those are not that many who can do that. And we believe that really combining those two and having focus there is a good both for our growth but also for our margins. So it's not a bad position for us to go forward. And again, we are not building this strategy into kind of counting only on one service, for example, the Cyber Defense Center. We want to provide our clients a holistic portfolio of different continuous services, like we want to do with the other services that we are offering. Good. And then the people, and obviously not a very small part of our picture is the people. And as discussed earlier, I think sort of the COVID times has hurt our people perspective in two ways. First of all, the cost savings, restructurings. I think that was hard for our people. And then the COVID altogether. I think many companies are talking about COVID fatigue and how people are faring. Today there was a good article in the Helsingin Sanomat, the Finnish main newspaper, about how people are working in digital world and how they are interacting, and are we able to help them to navigate there, and how do we make sure that they don't burn out from that digital environment stress, so to say. And very key questions, and I think we don't have any right answers for that, but we know that we need to put focus there. And this is a busy slide, bear with me. I just want to point out from here that on the top left we can see the employee satisfaction in Nixu, We measure it with 2 questions. We have an happy at Nixu question, where it's from 1 to 4. You either agree or disagree. And the happy at Nixu percentages has been there in the 80-70 ranges, which I think the above 80s is really nice figures. And then lately they've been on the sort of 70 range. And then we are measuring the eNPS, Employee Net Promoter Score question, which is a more traditional NPS measure. And with both of those, we can see that the Q2 results in 2020, after the restructurings, after the COVID hit, we saw a dip in our employee satisfaction numbers. And obviously the sort of the shock for Nixu having to go through that sort of actions that we did go, I think that is visible, and we didn't have a culture to sort of prepare and understand. And of course, I think myself and the other leadership, we could have done a better job in driving that further. The good thing is that we have now seen an increase in the numbers, but as you can see from the bars, there is still work to be done. We now need to regain the trust with the people. We need to regain the trust of the employees. And then to the right of that figure, you can see the FTE by month in our operations, meaning how many people do we have a providing full-time equivalent, so to say, the work amount. And as you can see from the beginning of 2020, there's been a dip going downward. First of all, there were the layoffs and so on, but then we got a increased attrition of employees towards the end of 2020, and unfortunately we were not able to recruit at the same pace. And only during this first half we have been now able to gain into recruits, and there's the blue bar upwards showing where we are right now on the beginning of September, and then everything past that is obviously our planning and so on. But there's still kind of, you can see that we need people in order to grow, and we still need to recruit people in order to get into the same levels and have the growth happening. So that has been one of the challenges during this year for us. And then on the bottom left, there is the seniority levels of our people, and I think that from a CEO perspective, that is both a really good thing and also a challenge for us, because as we can see, there is a quite, our pyramid is very top heavy. It's not a pyramid, it's an inverted pyramid. We have a lot of senior people at Nixu. We have good experience, we are really competent, but at the same time, obviously, we are not, let's say, able to bring in enough juniors. We are not able to train enough juniors in their tracks, and also, of course, kind of balance the costs of our people operations. And I think this is one of the key fundamentals that we also need to work out, that we need to find a way of bringing in much more juniors and then training them to the industry, but doing so without, let's say, harming the satisfaction of the top talent, the leads there. So they need to be enjoying bringing in new talented people and not like feeling that as a burden. So we are balancing in that act, but there's definitely one area where we need to focus and put things happening. And I think we already have that happening in many areas, but as you can see from the pyramid, it's not let's say on the level where we want it to be. But finally, from the people perspective, the bottom right quote from our Pulse survey saying what is good at Nixu, and I think this highlights the whole best workplace thing, that we want the learning at work, being able to learn from Nixu clients. That is still the key things in our people strategy. We want people to be able to learn, we want them to move into new areas and so on. And we believe that this also gives Nixu a great advantage for many other companies who are now hiring security professionals, that Nixu has a really good client base, a wide-ranging client base, international client base. And when you are working as a consultant, there are many very different services. So if you want to move from a very technical field to a more business field, you can do that all within Nixu. So I think there we have a let's say, foundation is good, and now we need to make sure that the actions are right to continue on that path and go forward. And speaking of way forward, so what are the sort of the key things that we need to take care in order to go forward? I would define these sort of 4 must-win battles for us. So the talented team, making sure that the top talent that we have at Nixu is satisfied, is happy, is engaged, is willing to teach the new juniors in the company. And of course, everyone at Nixu needs to be happily working with our clients. And that brings us to the second battle, to client intimacy. And I have to say that at Nixu, maybe at times we have been more, let's say, focused in our own service and our technologies, and we have noticed that, and we now want to push out much more to the relationship and to the client intimacy. We want to be much more, let's say, at our client's skin and to understand their business. And that's again in the Better Together model. We are highlighting that fact with the client experience business area that will hire the cybersecurity advisor roles who are the link between Nixu's technical competencies and the client's business processes and their sort of industry needs. That has been a sort of a role that has been lacking from our operations so far, and we need to build that up in order to relate better to the client's business needs and map our talent there. Then the third, growth outside Finland. We discussed that already, and it is clear that we want to grow in Finland, but it is clearer that we want to grow faster outside of Finland, and we believe that there's room to grow, and especially like Pietari pointed out, the Swedish expected growth figures are quite promising, and I think we have a kind of starting point from there to really build up further. And then the fourth point, as a service, I think we are already quite well positioned when comparing to other cybersecurity companies, that we have a good pathway of providing as a service. We have done that. We have a service management capabilities, but still we need to be better at that, both in managed services as in a human-based professional services. So that is a key battle for us as well. And of course, all of these battles then need to have their own concrete actions that are taken into grassroots levels and carried further there. And what should happen in the kind of the next coming halves, and now when we are already in the middle of the H2 2021, the client intimacy has been our key factor here. So clients. We now need to be with the clients. We need to talk to them more. We need to engage them more, and that needs to be the main focus. Then, of course, in the background, we still need to truly become better together. So now we have executed the changes needed for the better together, but now we need to learn the ropes, so to say. We need to understand how this model works and what we can gain from there, and then we can benefit our clients. In H1 2022, we need to present Nixu as a unified for partnership in different markets. We have, of course, already started that, but I would say that in H1 we need to be truly set up to do that in a proper way, and we need to now then leverage the whole 400 people in front of our clients in all of the markets where we are. Simultaneously, in the background, the team cohesion and learning in the new model needs to really find its ways and going forward with that. And I would say that H2 22, there the Nixu recognition outside Finland needs to be clearly on a better level than it is right now. That enables us to win the cases, that enables us to get higher rates from our clients and so on. And then the continuous services offering at that stage also needs to be well formulated, and also we need to stop doing some services that are not let's say on top of each other or are not let's say profitable enough for our sake. So we need to really look at what are the service offering that we are going to deliver. So those are from work perspective the main priorities going forward. And to end my presentation, I want to, even though knowing that we have been struggling during the COVID period, we have done maybe some decisions that could have been done differently and so on. We have a track record from 2013 forward of building up our story with the same strategy and so on. And I would like to say that yes, there's been a now hiccup, and now we are aiming for the growth again, and now we are putting there. And I don't see any problems why we couldn't make it. So it's still the same DNA, it's the same company, the same brand, and the market is there. So that's where we are proceeding, and that's where we believe we are going. Now I guess it's actually time for a short video describing our purpose statement in a bit more detail. We actually unveiled this video in February to relight the fire into Nixu team at that point. I'm happy to share that with you now, and then we go further with Janne and our financial numbers.
At Nixu, our mission is to keep the digital society running. Society evolving every day
with new digital solutions.
There is no silver bullet for all cybersecurity needs.
Instead, we need holistic understanding that covers all aspects of the 360 view.
This is why we, a 400-strong group of cybersecurity professionals, exist.
We have vastly diverse backgrounds and approaches.
Together we are more than the sum of our parts.
Our job is to be there, seamlessly in the background, but always ready to step into the front line.
When the situation is the hardest, our presence is the strongest.
For our clients, we are a true trusted partner.
Together we create more resilient services to enable digitalization.
We value our combined expertise and of our constant learning from each other and our clients.
Our vantage point to the field keeps us on the top of the cybersecurity game.
Let's make the future, whatever it may be, more secure for all. Together.
Good afternoon. My name is Janne Kärkkäinen and I'm the CFO of Nixu. I'm happy now to continue where Petri ended, so to continue with the numbers and through that provide some background from the numbers point of view to what Petri has told and to our updated ambition statements. So without further ado, let's get started and let's get started with the revenue development and breakdown of that. Nixu as a growth company, so reflecting here how we have been performing so far. So Nixu got listed in 2014, and actually since that our average growth rate has been 24% per year till last year, which was obviously a COVID year. And if we take out that and last year, obviously, as you can see there, our growth was clearly lower than in the earlier periods. So basically our average growth before the COVID period is actually then closer to 30%. And where that growth has been coming from, you have the logos below the bars, and you can see the several M&As that we have been doing. But not only that, it has been actually quite balanced growth both with the organic and inorganic growth. So during 2018 and 19, actually our organic growth was at the level of 12 to 17%. And then continue from there to share of revenues outside Finland, the international revenues. That has been also the clear strategic aim and target since the Nixu got listed, and there, of course, the development has been quite clear and radical. So really growing from 6% to closer to 40% last year with the share of revenues outside Finland, and in absolute terms from about 1 million level to 21 million euro level. And Finland has been growing also at the same time well. And we have already stated like our main markets in Finland, Sweden, Benelux and Denmark. And this international growth, obviously much of that coming through acquisitions. But in addition to that, we had our greenfield operations in Netherlands and also then doing assignments also to outside these markets. So actually we have been doing our assignments to around 20 different countries. So that's also a building block in our international revenues. Continuous and managed service revenue development, that has been growing by 41% on the average level, and especially there the managed service revenue, and there much of that has been from the cybersecurity defense operations that has been really growing pretty much from zero to over 10 million euros of business, and with the 90% average growth from 2016 to 2020. Also, we have been growing with the, let's say, dark blue bar, the other continuous services. That is not that it has been somewhat diminished because of the ESCC acquired continuous services there that affected the 18, 19 and 20 revenue growth, but let's say more traditional core Nixu continuous services have been growing during that time. And there we have now the updated ambition statements of growing the continuous recurring revenues to 2/3 of the revenue in 2025. Then this is one of the new, let's say, KPIs here is the reoccurring revenues, which actually makes 85% of our revenues. So this is to say that the 37% of the, in addition to 37% of the continuous revenue, much of our revenues is actually reoccurring revenue, which is based on the long-term customer relationship, and that especially in the project and assignments area. But in addition to that, also in the tech resale business, we have also this type of recurring revenues through upgrades, license supports, and so on. And you have the recurring revenue definition here. So basically, the customers generating revenue 2 years in a row. So that's the definition of that. Revenue share of public and private customers. So also giving you a bit of a insight to what is when we slice and dice our revenue structure, that what is in this angle point of view. So close to 1/5 of the revenues are coming from the public customers. And there we have, of course, different states, municipalities, cities, and organization of those and the companies owned by them. So it's a important part of our business, but still, I would say, pretty healthy balance between the public and the private customers. About the customer structure, which is pretty decentralized in the way. So at the same time as these top big customers are very important part of our business and revenue generation. So top 10 customers doing about 1/4 of our revenues, top 20 customers doing more than 40% of our revenues. Still the biggest customer is about 7% of the revenues. So from that point of view, the customer segmentation is pretty scattered. And the top 20 customers, it's really that between 2019 and 2020, 15 out of the 20 were the same. So it's a good retention. There was also new customers joining, growing to that segment, which is also on the other hand very good. And it was also interesting to note that actually the top 20 did grow somewhat faster last year than our average growth was last year. From top 10 and top 20 to the customer segment that are generating revenues 100,000 euros or more. Actually, that is close to top 100 of our customers. So it has been around 100 of our top customers that are generating this much of revenue or more than 100,000 euros from the total amount of customers of about 550 to 180 customers. And also, like we've already earlier stated, around 60% of the top Finnish 100 customers are our customers. And when we go actually to top 50 Finnish companies, it's even higher percentage, so about 70% of that segment are our customers. But not only Finland, also outside Finland in other markets, we have a strong presence, enterprise presence in the customers. And altogether, we can fairly state that it's a strong customer base with high customer satisfaction. Then a bit reflecting that what is the average deal size in our business. So we have those big customers and they're having also big, of course, big assignments, but also We have lots of smaller assignments which basically pulls down the average deal size, which is about 50,000 euros. And that is basically reflecting the nature of our business. So perhaps unlike some digitalization companies that might have then big teams working at the customers for very long periods. So of course this is a bit different to that. And there it's a clear aim here to grow the deal sizes with our continuous services and holistic offering. So we see a clear potential in this area. Then let's continue from revenues to profitability development and look how EBITDA has been developed. And there this basically shows how obviously this has been developing as well as we have hoped, and there has been some challenges on that. But on the other hand, it also shows how our focus has been more on the growth in the past, and now we have a clear aim on growing more balanced, profitable growth going forward. Last year was obviously a special year, and like Petri stated there, what was the starting point for that year, securing our cash positions and so on, and doing some cost-saving measures, and also running with let's say, travel and office-related costs, for example, clearly lower level than normally, and now getting back to the, let's say, normal cost levels. We are estimating this year to be the EBITDA being lower than it was last year. But from there onwards, as said, our ambition is to gradually grow the EBITDA towards the ambition level of 15% of the revenue level in 2025. And there, just to note that at least the analysts well recall that the IFRS 16 came alive in 2019, and the figures earlier than that has been roughly estimated, just to make those comparable. So that's just a side note. About our profitability structure here, a bit in depth, what Petri has quite often also stated, that we have a healthy balance with our, let's say, professional services. And if we just a deep dive to the hourly level calculation and looked at how much is our staff cost and then compared to our hourly sales price, there's a clear margin there over 50% between those two, and leaving us a healthy margin. Of course, from that margin still deducted the overheads and sales cost, but still having a good, healthy starting point to do a profitable business with the professional services. So this is an illustration of that. Then Finland and international profitability, and obviously this is now the view that is not so, let's say, important from the new operating point of view, like operating model point of view, what Petri just described. But this is just the reminder what we have already stated earlier, that our profitability outside Finland is lagging behind, and this from last year showing that the EBITDA in Finland was at the level of about 12%, and despite of carrying much of the headquarter costs, and then we have the international operations that were actually reducing our group level profitability there. But again, with the new operating model, I think we are able to touch this point and see a place to improve our Nixu level profitability through that as well. Then continuing from there to the balance sheet, having a couple slides and KPIs about that. And like Petri said, that when we went to the COVID period in March 2020, obviously the starting point, it was there to basically safeguard our cash positions. And now if we look the 3, let's say, half-year points backwards, we can say that our net debt position, which has been about 2.5 million euros, that has been fairly stable. Our equity ratio with 33, 34%. So that has been on the stable level. Also, our cash position in the end of this year, first half, it was 6.1 million euros. And in addition to that, our credit limits, where our unused credit limits were about 4.5 million euros. Then this is the development of the goodwill and the intangible assets. So another view to the balance sheet that I wanted to share with you. Also starting from the 2016, you can see how in the absolute terms especially, how our intangible assets have been obviously growing through the several M&As that we have been doing, and then really peaking in the first half 2019, and from there then reducing to the level of about 30% of the assets and 15 million euros like it's nowadays. So I think during the past 2 years, those levels have been going down together with the loan balances, and then obviously making them new room for further acquisitions going forward, which was a clear element in our growth ambition statements. And then with a couple slides also describing how our journey from First North to the main list have been during the past years. Interesting angle to that is the number of shareholders, and that has been, let's say, from post-IPO to from about 700 to close to 5,000. We are having about 7 times more shareholders than directly after post-IPO. So, of course, we are now happy to have such many shareholders owning Nixu. And who are the main shareholders? So here is the list of 10 biggest shareholders of the company, which makes about 36% of the ownerships. And we can see that we have institutional owners there on the list, but also an important topic here is that the company management and personnel is also having a wide shareholding of the company through actually different elements there. So we've had 3 personal share issues, one already even before the Nixu got listed, and 2 as a listed company. We have our option scheme, and we have our employee fund there as well. That has been actually growing very nicely as well. From 2 years ago, Nixu's employee fund was the 23rd biggest, and now it's actually already 12th biggest owner of the company. So very nice to have that as well. So actually that concludes my brief presentation, and I guess we have time for the Q&A.
Let's continue with Q&A. And before we start, I'd like to remind that there are still time to send in questions with the webcast functionality, so please use the opportunity. So let's take the first question, and this goes to maybe to Janne. Can you please describe the difference in profitability between expert and managed services?
Well, that is actually something that we haven't opened in our reporting so far, the profitability split between those 2 areas. And the illustration I had was from the professional service area, but unfortunately that is not something that we haven't opened so far.
Maybe just as a general level to comment that the managed service profitability is not on the same level as the professional services. So there is a work to be done, and again the sort of the better together model when building up the scalability in the so on is helping in that area.
Good. Then there is a question about the Nixu growth ambition, and this goes to Petri. So about the growth ambition, there is no longer a specific target for the number of cybersecurity professionals. So could you please explain what is the reason for that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I guess when we released that ambition statement, it was more to give a sort of some concrete, tangible form that how big we will be as a company. But then at the same time, many people, investors, were saying that it's not a relevant figure from investor perspective, and that is true. It was more laid out there for Nixuans to understand that, hey, what are we aiming and how do we want to grow? So that's the reason why we decided to leave it out from there. But obviously, if we continue on that track, we will be a quite sizable company, and I think I'm personally aiming for the 1,000 Nixuans at some stage. But what stage that will be, and how do we will play that game? That remains to be seen.
Good.
I think there's a question in our analyst corner. So
Matti Riikonen, please go ahead.
Hi, it's Matti Riikonen, Carnegie. Regarding the trade-off between growth and profitability, has the kind of shortage of skilled people led to lower targets in any way, or is it just based on your assessments on the demand and competition?
If I answer it through that way, that have we sort of lowered the growth ambition because we would believe that we are not able to get the people, I guess that was fundamentally what you were asking. No, that's not what we are counting. We still believe that yes, we want to grow as fast as we can, and then we need to make the means happen to be able to recruit. And obviously, I haven't ever resorted to the saying that yes, we could grow so much, but we can't get the people, because I think that's sort of an excuse, because if you only want to recruit the top best that know everything and so on, there isn't that many of those. But if you want to grow by building up teams where you have diverse talents and you combine them, then I think you are able to do. And if you train the people yourself, so that one has been always Nixu's choice going forward, and we still believe that we are able to recruit and grow via that means. So it hasn't been sort of a clear factor, but obviously now we can see that when we have had less people than we earlier had, then that has had an effect. But I would say that that's more when the situation stabilizes, then we should be able to recruit more as a plan.
Okay, then secondly, now that your growth ambition or growth targets have come down slightly, so you are not as aggressive as before, and you see good reasons to basically improve profitability by working more efficiently together. Why isn't your EBITDA target higher than what you said? I mean, earlier when you thought that you would be achieving 15% with those growth targets, and now since you don't want to grow or need to grow as fast, why don't you put your EBITDA target at 20% or something? Or why isn't it higher?
Good question. First of all, it's good to know that it's over 15%. So I guess we can say that sky is the limit. Obviously, well, I guess 100% is probably the limit. But yeah, but maybe sort of the difference is that actually earlier we were saying that we will reach the 15% at the end of the period, because we are growing fast, and then at the same time at the end of the period, actually the growth ambition, the growth speed would kind of reduce, because the market would become more mature and so on. So that was kind of the logic earlier. Now we are saying that actually we are improving gradually all the time, and hopefully reaching, for example, 10% pretty fast, and that's sort of the reason that we are along the way getting the profitability better, and then of course we are not able to grow as fast during that period. So if earlier it was more like that, grow like hell and then reach the profitability, now it's more like grow and improve the profitability at the same time, which of course is sort of harder game, as we all know.
Okay, then about the client centricity, I haven't heard any company not talk about client centricity, but actually fewer companies speak about how it's being achieved, how the trick is done in your organization. So could you explain what kind of measures are you going to take, or have you already taken, to make it happen? What kind of incentives you place on the organizations to actually accelerate it being happen? And what kind of punishment tools do you have if it doesn't work like that? I mean, typically organizations don't work as out of goodwill. They need both carrot and stick.
Do you have a good advice from No, but it's a good question and very relevant question. And obviously, talking about client centricity is easy, and how to do it's another thing. And I would say that there is at least two things. The one is a very sort of cultural thing, and that's why we are talking about it now, that we need to be more at the clients. And we have been, when delivering projects and assignments, we have been quite happy when we could deliver it only from let's say home, and we haven't been going to meet the clients and living with them and so on. And obviously in the Better Together we are not always able to live with them, but still we need to increase that on the places where we can. And that's the reason why in the client experience team we now have the cybersecurity advisors who will be local at the local market. So they need to be kind of sitting with the client and living with the client and breathing the same air, and they are, as said, sort of the liaisons in understanding the client, and they of course need to then get the team with them and be there. That's sort of the cultural thing. I'll come back to the measures later. Then the second thing is a more of a thinking in our way of acting, and I think, well, might be typical for specialist organizations, but we very easily think of our services and the technologies and so on, and we focus on them instead of going to the clients. And I think this is one clear measurement that we are now stating, that we don't want to carry as many service products or such things in our coffers as we earlier had. I think at some point we calculated and there was about 150 of different service products that Nixu had laid out, and we can all understand that maybe it's too much and maybe not all the clients are able to remember all of those. So for example, in the professional services, the key message now to the teams is that, hey, we have competent people, let's go to the clients and talk with them and then draft what we are going to work with them, and not like that we go to the office and draft what we are plan to sell to the clients and then sell. And that's very much of a cultural thing, but now a clear change that we realize that, hey, this is actually happening and now we need to reverse it. And to the measurements, I think the key measurements is of course the P&L and the revenues. And now, like I said, every person is in a key P&L structure, and they kind of those KPIs are now driven forward in their target settings in a much more, let's say, prudent manner than they used to be done earlier. And then we'll see what else is needed in order to make that change happen. But those are at least a couple of those things that are on the table. Okay. Let's see what sort of whips do we need at
okay, thank you.
Petri Kairinen from Inderes. If you look at your organic growth target, do you think you can achieve with your current client base, or so that you have enough big clients where you can grow, or do you need to win new big clients to achieve the growth targets?
This is a dangerous statement, but even in the fear of myself being misunderstood, I will say that I'd like to reach that target with less clients than we currently have. So I'd rather see 500 clients or less than the 600 that we were now carrying. So obviously we are serving too many clients right now, and that is reflected in the deal size. The deals are too small. We are like too spread over with the size of the company that we are. But that has been one of the sort of the fundamental problems, because this industry has been so small, and in order to grow and gather, you just go in and get whatever you can, and especially during the Corona times when desperate for the revenues, you just go in everywhere. And now when I think things are becoming more normal, then we can also focus and qualify our customers a little bit better. And there is room to grow, and we have a pretty clear program for the cybersecurity partners and how we want to drive them forward. So I believe that we are set up there. Having said that, obviously we still want to win new clients as well, but I think we want to be selective and what are the names where we want to go, and also and this is somewhat in the debate right now, but we are discussing that what is the right target segment for us. We have been traditionally working with the big enterprises and are still working. I think Janne we discussed over lunch that with some calculations with, for example, the Finnish top 50 was in 75% of the Finnish 72% of the Finnish top 50 are our clients. So we are present there, but obviously many of them could still be bigger clients of us. And then there are some names that are not yet our clients, so we want to go there. But then there's a quite lucrative segment also in the sort of top middle market segment that is actually maybe not. That's more regional in a way, and so on. I think there's also good names to be picked as a new ones.
And how do you see the public sector? Do you think that the share of the revenue from public clients could increase in the coming years?
That's a good question, and when reflecting on the numbers there, I'm actually quite happy with the share of it right now. Of course, when we have a good clients, and for example now winning the Kela frame agreement, I believe that actually on the short term at least will probably increase the amount of that share. But on the public sector, we also want to be a bit selective that which clients do we want to be working and so on. So to me, as long as the prices are good and the continuity is good with the clients, I don't care. And so far, from that perspective, the public versus private hasn't been that different in a way.
And just to add that historically it has been, we had 18%, and that's quite close to the average between 15 and 20 if we look at the years back. So it has been quite stable on that level.
Okay, and if we now take a time travel to the year 2025, so and you have achieved your targets, so what is the share of revenue from Finland then, and do you still see that you can grow in Finland?
Really good question, and actually maybe a how do you call it, narrative revelation, but when planning for these ambitions, then at some point we had a measure of what is the revenue in Finland and this share there, but then we thought that maybe it's not kind of one that we need to release or so on. But yeah, definitely the share of revenues outside of Finland needs to grow. Right now it was about 60% coming from Finland and 40% outside. I think it at least needs to reverse. We still can grow in Finland, and previously, of course, the problem has been that Finland has been growing with such a speed that it's hard to grow the others faster. But now, of course, with the model, I think the biggest thing is that the Finnish team members need to understand that it's not like Finland before everything else, but they need to be willing to serve the other markets and the clients in the other markets and have equal or even bigger emphasis on serving those. That's the game that we need to win now with the Better Together. That we need the Finnish teams need to be really focused in a Danish client or a Swedish client or so on when it needs to be there. And that's again sort of one of these changing key messages to the team.
All right. Then one question about competition. Have you noticed any changes in the competitive landscape, or for example, I've noticed that some IT service providers have been setting up their own cybersecurity divisions. So have you noticed any changes? The
competition feed has been constantly changing during my time in Nixu. It has always been changing, and always somebody has been setting up new things, and then somebody has been selling their things or cutting them off and so on. I wouldn't say that there is anything extraordinary right now. Of course, there's a M&A activity. The market is being consolidated. In Sweden, there was a big deal with local managed service provider Centor being acquired by Accenture, for example, and so on. So there are these things still continuously happening, and I think the IT integrators all together are let's say, building up their things and so on. But then again, there is still room for dedicated cybersecurity provider, and we are on the size that we are able to compete head to head with the big global ones, which is really nice to see.
Okay, then last question. This is more like a CFO question. What is optimal capital structure for Nixu, and is the current balance sheet strong enough to achieve the inorganic growth that you're targeting?
Yeah, so with the ambitious statement where we have stated that 10% on average would come from the inorganic growth, so that is pretty much calculated through with the structures that we have been using so far. So using the bank loans together with some share of the shares as well, basically to commit the management to the acquisitions and so on. So with those structures, it's possible. Obviously, in addition to that, when we grow further, probably the bond market is also interesting to have a look. But I think the elements that we have been using so far and found good so far, I think with that structures we are able to make the ambition statements.
And I guess we are not expecting to change the balance sheet structure heavily to some way or another. So plans on that.
All right, thank you.
Good. There is a question from the webcast audience. So now you had average deal size of 52K. What would you see a good level of average deal size in 2025?
Good question. That we haven't set a target for ourselves, but I would say that it's actually the kind of the average deal size is a problematic because there's a host of small ones and then there's a bigger ones, and it's sort of median might actually be not existent in the real world. But I would say that it needs at least to double in a way, and hopefully much more. But we want to increase it. We need to find the ways of increasing the deal size, and I think it will be somewhat neglecting the smaller deals in the cases where it's not important for us, and then at the same time combining bigger solutions and being braver in selling them.
Yeah. Then there is a question about being a trusted partner for the client. So. Can you please describe how many different cybersecurity products a normal Outokumpu-sized company uses, and how does this compare to full suite service?
That's a really good question, which I obviously don't have a detailed answer, but I would say that it is dozens anyway, and I think it's really important to understand that when you are talking about cybersecurity products, there is a product schema that is sort of bulk and commoditized products that are typically offered by your IT integrator or your telco provider and so on. And that's sort of a market that we don't even want to compete or are not able to compete. It is really a red ocean, and we are not there. And I would say that tens of products come through that channel. And then there are sort of these premium products and technologies that where Nixu is. And I think there is easily tens of products in that area as well, and services around those, and that is where we are active and are able to offer quite a good holistic package to our clients, either by ourselves or with our partner companies.
Good, thank you. Matti.
To how many customers do you currently sell your managed or continuous services? How big a share of the client base does that part of your clientele present? Good
question, which we haven't actually disclosed, and even if I don't have the exact number, but definitely not 600. So I would say that less than 100 right now. So there is definitely a room to kind of improve and go to the clients
because I was just thinking that if you aim to have 2/3 of your revenue coming from continuous services, and at the same time you would like to kind of take down the number of customers, wouldn't that imply that basically you would like to have much more of your customers actually purchasing those continuous services as well, so that it's worthwhile to develop a good customer relationship and basically take it just from consulting to also longer term services?
Exactly. And if we take the sort of the managed services angle, for example, now that we have the managed services business area and Jan leading that further, and we have a client that has a cyber defense center as a sort of managed service offering, and now we have a managed identity and access management platform. So what we of course want to do is that when that client has a managed identity or has an identity and access management issue, we want to sell them to managed identity and access management platform, and then they can get one service manager serving both of those and so on, and then add on other things, and that is the whole concept of being a holistic service provider in the cybersecurity for the client. And obviously not always we are not best match and so on, but if we can get, let's say, 100 clients that do buy into that thinking and so on, I think then we can get a much more bigger clients in those areas and really get that on the next level.
Okay, thank you.
Good. I think this concludes Q&A now, and then to one of our growth pockets and the IoT security part, and happy to invite our Aleksandr Värä, who is leading that startup of growth incubator forward. So Alex, stage is yours.
All right. So, hi everyone, my name is Aleksandr Värä. I'm heading our IoT business at Nixu. And today we're going to discuss, or I'm going to showcase some glimpses around IoT security markets, some drivers behind the market, as well as our positioning on the IoT security market overall. So without further ado, IoT security market looks like it's developing. So depending on who you ask from, it's defined in different ways. And associated technologies are also different. However, one thing that remains same is that companies are saying that it's big and it's going to grow. If we think about IoT as a phenomena, is of course tied very deeply into overall digitalization. Thus, it impacts pretty much every meaningful industry out there. So there are things that are entering the field. By things, I mean products that are connected, that are smart in nature, and obviously with that, there's a lot of security novelty that is happening today on the market. If we think about the biggest industries out there today, well, it's obviously government, so smart cities, defense, industrial revolution, energy, utilities, healthcare, as well as automotive industries. But at the end of the day, the summary is that it's a big market, it's growing, and it's still shaping its form as we speak. So a couple of drivers from IoT security perspective. If we think about cybersecurity in connected products, the drivers are mainly driven by safety. So we all know that connected products will become parts of our lives in an increasing way. At the same time, they will have autonomous behavior. If used in the wrong way, they will impact our lives, some more, some less. And thus, there's overall evolving legislation as well as regulations in multiple continents. For example, European Union's RED, so Radio Equipment Directive, which pretty much outlines what needs to be, so that there needs to be security within any product that basically has that communicates over the air via radio frequencies, as well as their vertical related regulations, such as, for example, European Union's MDR, medical device regulation, which also outlines some parts of cybersecurity that needs to be in place in products. In addition to general as well as vertical related legislation and regulations, there's also continuous development of standards, and those are primarily driven on a vertical level. So, for example, today there are already standards that exist in industrial automation markets as well as maritime markets, and there's of course evolving standards in industries such as automotive on a continuous basis, as well as in healthcare. So in the future, it will be more clear on what is the minimum requirement for cybersecurity in IoT devices, and in addition to that, it will be mandated. So security will be required by law or any of the regulation. The fourth driver is customer behavior. So with time, customers are becoming more mature in their cybersecurity spending as well as in their cybersecurity efforts overall. Thus, customers will require more cybersecurity, or they will impose cybersecurity requirements, and also, of course, assess products they are to obtain from a vendor. And of course, all of these three drivers are mainly driven by evolving threat landscape. Everyone understands that IoT is here to stay. Their connected products will become an increasingly important part of our lives. And regardless of big drivers that mandate security in products, Gartner is not feeling very optimistic about it, stating that by 2025 we will see attacks that will impact human life. So in summary, from IoT point of view, cybersecurity will become a permission to play. So if you are to survive on the market, you will need to have secure devices. In addition to that, things such as standardization and certification actually provide or put IoT security in a position where it becomes a trust generation or trust generator aspect, if you will. Hence, some companies might see that having more secure devices will actually enable them to do more business on the market. And last but not least, obviously, cost efficiency, since there will be, or security will be mandatory in connected products moving forward. not having secure devices will of course impose risk, which might realize in product callbacks, as well as of course any additional penalties associated with it. And building security after the fact is just plain more expensive and more tedious to do than having secure devices from the get-go. So what that means for an organization that is developing secure products or connected products on the market is that if we consider such organization's sales cycle, that organization will have a new customer role, and that customer role will actually be representing the information security office. And that person's or that team's responsibility will be to assess the risk of such product and define whether it's good enough, as well as what additional cost might occur when obtaining such a product in order to have a solution, in order to have a secure solution that you put on the market. So in this sense, even when interacting between customers or between companies, one already needs to have something related to security as part of their, say, sales material or any material that convinces the customer. The other part is concerning capabilities of an organization, and those capabilities pretty much translate into three bigger things, such as secure development lifecycle, where R&D teams, product organizations, they need to take security into consideration when developing their products. Things in secure development lifecycle include coding standards, threat modeling, risk assessments, privacy impact assessments, continuous testing. So it's an entire process that needs to be adopted to an existing product development lifecycle that needs to be adhered to in order to make sure that security is taken care of throughout the lifecycle of a product. In addition to that, of course, the products need to be secure. So products need to have security features, as well as there need to be mechanisms to patch devices. The sooner the better, because even if you have a secure device coming out of the R&D oven into the market, into the mainstream market, chances are that vulnerabilities will be found, vulnerabilities that will affect that product. Hence, by standard, you would need to have a vulnerability management practice in place, or incident response practice in place that would basically enable you to patch a device as soon as possible. And last but not least, certification. So where today customers are mature enough to require certain security features, or they're mature enough to start assessing to be obtained products, in the future there will be a bare minimum requirement, which will be driven by standard. However, as mentioned earlier, standards, for example, if we take an existing standard from industrial automation vertical, IEC 62443, there is a substandard for this bigger standard family that has 4 different security levels for device security features. So now company A, if they are producing their devices, let's say, into critical infrastructure, then they are in a position to be better than the competition with higher security levels. So what does that really mean for the organization developing the products? Well, it means that there needs to be more skill set in terms of adhering to software development process, actually deploying security features on the device, maintaining those. And that skill set needs to be within every team that develops products. In addition to that, if we consider major organizations, there will be need for product security organizations. So today, if we consider Nordics especially, majority of the security organizations are so-called IT security. And there will be a subsection of that will mainly focus on products and maybe even digital services. And that has been already been witnessed in, for example, United States, where it's very common to have product security organization if you are actually developing products. And in addition to that, of course, you need technology solutions. They exist, and there are new technology solutions coming to the market pretty much on a monthly basis. However, today's IoT security technology solutions are not that general. So basically, one needs to understand one's product's use cases and then find fit-for-purpose technology. So there is no winner, if you will, in IoT security technology space either today, which of course puts even more burden on the product development and product security organization. Well, if we consider Nixu in this space, I've joined Nixu almost 6 years ago, and already then we had some great innovative R&D projects around security of mobile handsets, for example. And furthermore, some years ago, we've won an innovation award together with Danfoss, where we developed a security platform for their next generation devices. So historically, being in this space is very common to us, and we have the skill set not just to build the secure products, but also to help organizations to adopt secure development lifecycle practices. And that tradition is, I believe, more than 10 years long at Nixu. Obviously, mobile handsets played a big part in this game and in our history. And thus, we are quite nicely positioned in order to be an integrated product security team for our customers. As I mentioned, size and experience, but in addition to that, location. So if we think about current innovations and Nordics, there's a lot of homegrown innovation happening here. In addition to that, if you think about the cost structure, or personnel salary cost structure with the experience levels, there's a lot of investments in R&D centers happening in the Nordics today, which also puts us in a very nice position location-wise. And combining all of those three with customer-centric service organization or offering that enables us not just to be that highly experienced organization to our customers, but offer our experience at scale. And example of such service could even be this Nixu DevSecOps service. Imagine Acme Corporation that has an application security verification program. So standard says you need to do constant security testing. What it means is that there's either developers that will be allocated towards continuous security testing, ergo skill set, technology selection, adaptation, skill set of using technology and understanding what it produces, or there is a service where we actually integrate into customers' product development process by fetching their, say, source code or any artifacts that construct their applications and scan them for vulnerabilities. In addition to that, we verify them, make sure that there are real vulnerabilities and not false positives, as well as add additional information stating why such vulnerability occurs and how to fix it. And that information goes directly on developers' backlog. So now developers continue working as they have. However, they just receive information on the place where they receive all of their information that there is a vulnerability, this is how it's happened, and this is how you fix it. And that happens at scale. In addition to that, the management receives a bird's eye view on application security performance across the organization. How many vulnerabilities do we have? How fast do they get fixed? So your typical KPIs from secure development lifecycle perspective. What type of vulnerabilities are there? How can I make my development teams better? Team A might need different training than development team B. That's an example of combining experience, technology, as well as customer-centric service design. So in essence, the value that customer gets is that customer will have minimized set of vulnerabilities in production, and they are fixed at the earliest stages. In addition to that, since there are standards that make this process more or less mandatory, that is, the service actually complies with such standard. And instead of building your own organization, training people, and having the risk of retention in addition to technology selection, which would pretty much altogether take a couple years to create, that is something that can be pretty much bought from Nixu, and the value will be received instantly. So, and of course, this applies for web technologies, mobile technologies, as well as embedded technologies, which is very common when talking about IoT. IoT is not just about the device. IoT is your car that has all sorts of smartness in it. In addition to that, there are back-end services in the cloud, so cloud security becomes a big question. In addition to that, you have a mobile application through which you can start your heating, you can start your car perhaps, unlock your car. So that has security requirements as well. So it is a big entirety when we're talking about IoT. So from business development perspective, currently it's mostly professional services, so it's consultancy-based assignments. Some of them are longer term in R&D projects. Some of them are shorter term, but we're looking to more or less double the amount of revenue received from this business in the next 3 years. And in addition to that, a third of it would be based on continuous services. That's our goal. Thank you. I guess now it's a good time for questions.
Good. Actually, we are now thanking Alex for his presentation, and I guess we are taking questions only after my summary. So that was the point. And then we are nearing the end of this Capital Markets Day, and we brought in Alex to sort of describe a bit on the IoT market, which we see as an important growth pocket. And also it's important to understand the IoT market as such, and what Alex and his team are addressing are outside the scope of traditional IT. And I think, again, for us at Nixu, focusing on the digitalization done right and then cybersecurity of digitalization, we want to address markets that are outside the IT sector. And then again, there we find competitive edge and our own position that is quite unique with many clients. So very interesting area. But that said, now we are at the summary, and I just want to use one slide to remind you all on what we have been talking today and what we disclosed. So first of all, coming back to our purpose and mission statement, we want to keep the digital society running. We have been doing that increasingly for many years already, and we will keep on doing that for the coming years as well. And in order, while we are doing that, we want to see our business growing. And we see that we can achieve an organic growth of 15% compound annual growth, augmented with inorganic growth of about 10% with the same CAGR thinking. And we want to reach an EBITDA over 15% of our revenue at 2025, and continuous recurring revenue over 2/3 of our revenue by that time, which means that we will bundle many of the sort of the consultancy service into a more service-driven streams, and then also, of course, drive in managed services and grow them. The sort of the key factors that we've discussed here today, how are we going to reach that? There is the client intimacy in our core markets being the sort of the key differentiator right now. We need to be nearer the clients. We need to focus on those core markets that we have, and make the growth happen at the clients that we have. We of course need to get new clients, but we need to focus on the clients that we have. We need to get more efficiency from our operations, and there the new operating model is unlocking a lot of that potential. We bring things together. We reduce the amount of services that we might be running and be more efficient by running those things that we are then focusing on. And we move more of the business towards the continuous models with our clients while focusing on the streamlined service portfolio. And finally, of course, we can't do this without having a talented team of professionals that is able and willing to work across the borders and of course remotely a lot of the times. And that team needs diversity. We need to have the top talents. We need to have a good bunch of seniors, but we also need to bring in new trainees, new juniors to the industry to grow with us and really bring energy and vigor to our operations. Those are the things that we are now taking forward and progressing, and that concludes my presentation. I guess now we can get to the Q&A part, and actually I think you have now possibility to ask questions to any of us and going further with those. So let's take the Q&A part.
So let's continue with the questions. So let's start with the webcast audience. So Alex, what are the target customers of Nixu IoT services?
Well, let's say that we exclude anyone who produces, say, smart toasters, for example. So very obvious. But mostly the customers are the ones that are in more of an industrial IoT sector. So we're talking about industrial automation customers, maritime. So customers that produce more mission critical products.
And then if we continue with the same topic, so who are the largest players in IoT security at the moment? Including Nixu?
Yeah, there is none really. So it's very scattered market at the moment. And there are companies that have some very limited capabilities. There are some startups that are focusing on this area, but there is no clear leader at the moment.
Good. Then also going to Alex, IoT is not a new thing, but it seems that organizations are very late in understanding the importance of cybersecurity in their IoT products and services. What is the underlying reason for this?
I think that there's so much more where you need to focus and you don't have much time. That's one. The second part is that I believe that today, if we think about mission critical products, there was a lot of piloting going on. There's plenty of trials that have been taking place, and right now we actually see this mainstream of IoT business models and products. And with that, of course, comes the need for cybersecurity, which is taken by surprise, partially because it's now driven also by legislation, so it's becoming mandatory.
I guess the compliance and the client demand is also increasing, that the clients are increasingly asking for the security, and then it starts to happen.
Yeah.
Good. And then another question to Alex. So can you please give an example of a regular IoT client that is partnering with Nixu? What kind of cybersecurity services they could be consuming? Are these one-time projects or including continuous services as well?
So both. So first of all, if we consider a typical customer that is beginning its IoT journey and being very serious about it, there's a lot of design work that needs to be in place. So building secure or designing secure solutions, which of course is more of a professional service nature business. Then it's building them, which is pure R&D. And then the question becomes in who's maintaining those security platforms. And then we're transitioning towards more of security, or how to say, continuous security offering.
Great, thank you. Atte, do you have a question?
Yeah, about those IoT customers, can you disclose the number of customers you have right now?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Then a couple other questions, like what is the role of technology resale in your strategy right now?
Yeah, so if I answer that one, we do have a sizable part of the technology resale, around 10% of our revenue coming from there. But then at the same time, it is a much smaller piece than many of the competition, or let's say more traditional cybersecurity box mover type of companies is. And for us, the role of technology resale is twofold. One of them is that when we want to be a cybersecurity partner for our clients, we feel that we need to be able to resell some technology as well. If the client wants us to be doing that, then we need to be able to serve them in that area as well. And then the other part is actually the sort of managed services part. So if you are reselling the technology, then it is actually easier to step in to provide the managed service as well, and instead of selling the license, to sell it as a managed service. So we see that as a sort of a gate theory as well, that when you are reselling some technologies, you are easier to then add in service wrappers and make that happen. So that's the kind of the key logics, 2 key logics for us to keep on doing that, but we are not intent on, let's say, growing that part, our share of our revenues, that much. So it's more like based on these 2 rationales that we want to do it. And then at the same time, of course, the margins should be on a reasonable levels.
All right, and then could you give a little summary about the transition to a new operational model? Like, how has it gone this far, and is it already working as it should?
Yeah, so pretty complex transition and question. But if I highlight it like this, that the H1 was more the sort of the planning and executing. Maybe on a high level, if you would ask Nixuans, I think they are saying that, well, not much happened during the H1, but of course from the management perspective, the whole structure was changed. New business unit leaders were nominated, new team leaders were nominated before summer and so on. So now kind of the structure is in place. If you talk old-fashioned language, you could say that reporting lines and such things are in place. And what of course now needs to happen is that this change starts to happen at the team levels, and they need to start behaving in the model, and that has already taken place. That, you know, for example, our, let's say, cloud security business unit that has been in Finland so far is now widely in contact with their sales contacts and market contacts in Sweden, Denmark and Netherlands, and seeking that what client needs are there and how we can offer that, and that is happening. And then of course the competence building within those teams needs to start happening, and those are the kind of the small scale actions that are now only picking up speed and happening. And then of course, while the sales teams in, for example, Denmark learn the whole portfolio of Nixu, well, not maybe the 300 service products or 150, but the kind of how to sell the whole Nixu type of concept, that is of course still work ongoing. So maybe that's a short wrap up, but on the structurally we are there.
All right, then last question. Now when you're recruiting lots of new people, how's the salary inflation? Because you have said that there's like a war of talent.
Yeah, I think there is a war of talent, and of course we need to play par in there. And I'd say that for the top talent, we need to be able to hire them. We need to have a salary models and incentive models that enables us to get them on board. But at the other end, we need to bring in those juniors and train them to be our future top talents. I think those are the two key things that are there. And then maybe that means that in the senior levels, we need to be much more careful that, okay, how much do we want to get in that competition, and then if the competition for people gets out of hand, then we are maybe not playing that game. That's sort of the thinking right now. But we believe that we can manage, and it's always been a sort of tough question, and there's always been some companies that are willing to pay much more than we can pay. Any questions? No more questions in the webcast.
No.
Okay, but hey, I guess we are there right on time, actually, ending this Capital Markets Day. Thank you very much for everyone being there online. I hope that you got a good understanding of where Nixu is going, and as said, not radical changes in our strategy. We believe that the strategy that got us there before the COVID is still valid on its foundations. Maybe it's now, like the old saying is, that making sure that we execute properly and the better together operational model change is one of those big executions that we are now making sure that we take it the other way into the market, and we truly believe that will take us to the growth path again, and then of course the growth ambition is there to highlight that. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the day, and thank you to our analyst corner as well. It was really nice to have a live people audience, and hope we can continue on that track in the future as well. And thank you to our speakers and Hanna.
Thank you.
Thank you.